If your squat is stuck, feeling off, or is just uncomfortable, chances are you're making one of these 5 mistakes. I see these in intermediate, novice, all the way up to advanced lifters, and fixing these mistakes can help you on your path to building a big old squat. Mistake number 1, incorrect bracing. The most common and fundamental issue that I see with lifters' squats is their brace. Bracing is about more than just taking a big breath in before you squat. A lot of lifters mess this up by flaring their ribs way out and kicking their hips too far behind them, creating a whole bunch of extension on the descent of the squat. Now, this is an issue because you're gonna have problems with getting to depth comfortably, or maybe you'll see a really pronounced sticking point as a result of it. In order to fix your bracing, what you wanna be doing is contracting your abs super duper hard, clamping your ribs down on top of your abs, and trying to keep your hips tucked in, keeping your pelvis stacked with the rest of your back as you descend in the squat. Ideally, you want to maintain this position throughout the whole of the squat, which requires that you learn how to hinge and understand how to hinge. If you want more information on this bracing topic specifically, there's a couple videos we'll link in the description. Mistake number 2, improper upper back positioning. A lot of lifters will struggle with creating a good shelf for the bar to rest on when squatting. And my tip here is that we need some degree of pulling the shoulder blades back and down to create that shelf. If you look at more novice lifters, a lot of them will be shrugged up in the shoulder blades and maybe even pushed forwards in the shoulder blades. This can result in them having issues with their wrists and elbows and shoulders in terms of discomfort, and also in being bullied around by the bar. We need to be tight and rigid in the upper back in what I call the shelf in order to have a good squat. So make sure that we're creating tension in the upper back and using that to tie the bar into our aforementioned brace. Mistake number 3, driving your chest up. There used to, for a long time, especially when I first got into powerlifting, be a very prevalent cue. Lifters should drive their chest up when squatting. That once you hit the hole, just push your chest up, reach your chest up. This is maybe one of the worst cues out there. Now, I don't think it's as prevalent anymore, and this kind of does double back on or piggyback on the bracing cue. But a lot of lifters will hit the bottom and then try to drive their chest up to ensure that they're not getting pulled forward by the bar. In actuality, like I said previously, this is gonna mess with our brace. So what we need to be doing in the squat is when we hit the bottom, we need to be keeping those ribs down and being patient out of the bottom. The first portion of the lift where we drive out of the hole, we should be focusing on maintaining the brace and pushing with the legs really hard. That way we're setting ourselves up to be stronger and better positioned for the second and thirds of the lift. Mistake number 4, poor elbow positioning. I think a lot of lifters in the squat will try to use their elbows and either pushing their elbows forwards or backwards to try to make up for a lack of tension in the upper back. When lifters drive their elbows forwards out of the bottom of their squat, they're trying to make up for the fact that they haven't created a stable and tight upper back position to start with. And by wedging the shoulder joint underneath it as they come up, in some cases, you can have what approximates to a Band-Aid solution in keeping the upper back tight. However, in the long run, and with maximal or super maximal weights in the case of a powerlifting meet, this will break down. The other issue with elbow positioning is a lot of more novice lifters who maybe aren't good at creating a stable shelf to unrack and walk out with will push their elbows up behind them to flare their shoulder blades off of their rib cage and create a shelf for the bar. This is because they're afraid to be in any kind of hinge when picking and unracking. My advice when it comes to elbow position, and this will kind of logically follow if we get the shoulder blades and upper back packed the way we need to, is that with your elbows, if you're gonna think about cueing them, think about cueing them in towards your sides or in towards the center of your low back. Imagine there's a bullseye in the middle of your low back, you're trying to pull your elbows towards it. This should help you put your shoulder blades in a position where they're going to be tight and stable, and you're not going to need to be jerking your elbows forwards or backwards to make up for that lack of tightness. Mistake number 5, incorrect foot pressure. Now, incorrect foot pressure is a bit vague in general, but that's because it covers a few different faults. So let's talk about some of the more common issues. Probably the most common issue with incorrect foot pressure is when lifters rock too far forwards on their feet in the bottom of the squat. A lot of these lifters are very self-aware. They know they have a tendency of falling forwards. And part of the issue is that they're trying to fix that before they start the squat by being way far back on their heels. When these lifters are so far back on the heels, they are inevitably going to have to shift their center of mass forwards when they hit depth. This is going to cause them to pop much more far forwards than they'd like. And the fix for these lifters is to actually start with a little more pressure on the fronts of their feet. If you have this issue, and you can start with a more balanced foot pressure, thinking about finding pressure both on the ball of your feet and the heels before you start, and then just work to maintain that throughout the squat. Tempo squats can be kind of helpful there, just so you can feel out each of the positions as you move through. Then you're going to be able to just stay balanced instead of trying to overcorrect and then falling forwards anyways. The next common issue with foot pressure is when lifters end up on the insides of their feet. Now, this one often coincides with sliding or popping forwards at the bottom, but it's also usually a symptom of being perhaps too wide in the stance and too toed outwards. If we have that issue of popping forwards and the stance is wide and the toes are out, then we end up not only popping forwards, but falling onto the insides of the feet. If you're a lifter who falls onto the insides of their feet in the bottom of the squat, my first place that I recommend you look at making changes is going to be in your stance width and your toe angle. Generally speaking, these lifters should narrow their stance up, even if just slightly, and bring their toe angle a little more towards straight forwards. This can help just allow the knees to track where they want to based on your hip strength and anatomy, instead of forcing yourself into a position where you then have to change it to produce force on the way up. These squat mistakes can show up over time and they don't fix themselves. So if you want some help with fixing these things, if you want coaching that's tailored to your specific mistakes in the squat and some good programming on a beautifully well-built app that has all kinds of cool metrics and a giant program library and all of the good things, and
So bad.
CalgaryBarbell.com/training-app.
intros and outros. Like 70% of the video I will do in 5 minutes, but intros and outros I'll spend like 25 minutes on each.